Meanwhile, South African manufacturing activity fell in November. This according to ABSA's Purchasing Managers Index survey, and as volatile demand conditions weighed on business activity. The seasonally adjusted PMI slipped to 48.1 points in November from 52.6 in October, falling below the 50-point mark that separates expansion from contraction. ABSA CIB's Economist Sello Sekele joins us now with more insights. So thank you so much for your time, Sello. Now, the PMI going back into contractionary territory in November after 2 months of positive momentum. Was this a surprise at all?
Look, it was a surprise, right? Especially given that you would expect a lot of consumer tailwinds, including lower interest rates, lower fuel prices, compared to where we were, let's say, June. Those kind of things, you'd expect that they would boost domestic demand and therefore, continue to support the sector.
And actually, just breaking it down, would you say that the main pressure points are concentrated locally, and actually it's a different story when you look at exports?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So when you look at, for example, the new sales orders index, which basically measures demand, it shows that domestically that's where the pressures are, but on the export market, look, things are still holding up quite well. So it's more of a domestic issue, which is quite a surprise for us, given that it looks like the economic situation domestically is turning around.
I mean, just out of all those subsectors, are they all showing pressure at this point, or is it more pressure on others than on the other subsectors?
Yeah, so we don't look at the subsectors like that, but I can talk about the sub-indices.
Yes, there we go.
of the PMI. Look, the weakness was broad-based, right? And it's not surprising. So, for example, when you think of the employment sub-index, it continued to show that employment is being declining in the sector, which is not a surprise given that activity has not been increasing in a sustained way. So when you look at this release in particular, broad-based weakness across.
And does this really also point to just the general structural weakness of the manufacturing sector, and that even with some green shoots that it maybe will take a while for us to see sustained growth there?
Yeah, so I don't think it's just the manufacturing sector, let's say economy-wide, right? That's why, people like us continue to call for an acceleration in structural reforms that will lift economic growth to about, let's say, 3%. That's why you can start to see a real dent on employment, on the social ills reversing, and on businesses really being confident. But I must say, there are some green shoots. If you look at, for example, the business confidence index, I mean, it has increased for two successive quarters at least. So it looks like things are turning around, but there's still a long way to go.
Are there any warning signs on the inflation trajectory?
Yeah, so in terms of inflation, we saw price pressures increasing in the manufacturing sector. And we know that correlates well with producer prices. But look, we are in a very sweet spot here in terms of inflation in South Africa. I mean, we haven't really had an inflation problem, and we are unlikely to have an inflation problem, at least at the end of 2025, according to our forecast. So there, yes, one print is showing inflationary pressures, maybe due to a depreciation in the exchange rate in the month and a rise in fuel prices. But I think in general, the trajectory for inflation is one that's quite benign in our view.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap up the conversation there. Sello, thank you so much for your time and giving us more insights on the latest ABSA PMI. That was Sello Sekele, economist at ABSA CIB.